I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. And the topic we're talking about today is Jumper versus FrSky. So this is the FrSky Horus X10S. It's a radio released by FrSky. And this is the Jumper T16. It's a radio released by Jumper. And FrSky feels that these two radios are too similar. Now you might say to yourself, who cares what FrSky thinks? What does it matter? Well, FrSky is acting on their dislike of the Jumper T16 by sending letters to resellers like this. Good morning. We noticed that your store have been selling Jumper T16. T16 is a copy of FrSky X10. Copy and clone does no good to the RC industry, to the manufacturers, to the dealers, or to the customers. We hope your company, as a FrSky business partner and leader in the drones and FPV market, will reevaluate the Jumper product line. We hope your store can remove the T16 from your website. We are open to discuss, if any, requirement and suggestions from your side. In other words, if you would like to ask us to pay you money to get rid of the Jumper T16, we are open to that. That's how you should read that. Or else FrSky will reevaluate the cooperation between us. We may downgrade your customer grade or remove the FrSky dealer list and even stop supplying products. In other words, dear store owner, stop selling Jumper or we're going to cut you off. And FrSky, I'm not a fan of this approach at all. I'm not a fan of this approach of going to dealers and saying, we are not going to provide a product to you if you carry a competitor. The Jumper T16 runs OpenTX firmware. The OpenTX firmware runs on lots and lots of different radios, FrSky radios and non-FrSky radios. And OpenTX, it's critical that you understand that OpenTX is open source. It's actually governed by the GNU public license, the GPL, and what you need to know about the GPL is that it explicitly allows, if I could sum it up, it allows anyone to do anything they want with this code as long as they also release the source to the code that they have derived from your code. So in other words, if I want to take OpenTX, if I want to build a radio that is compatible with OpenTX and sell that radio, I am 100% legally allowed to do that. And no one really disputes this. FrSky seems to be trying to make more of a moral argument that what Jumper is doing is bad for the RC hobby because they've just copied the X10. But have they? Here's a post that Ready Made RC made to their Facebook page showing the insides of the Horus X10 and the Jumper T16. And it's pretty obvious that this is not a copy of the same PCB. It's not a copy of the same internals. It's just obvious from even a casual look that this is not a copy of the circuit. What Jumper did copy was the functional layout of the internals of the Horus X10. And that sounds damning at first, but I am going to argue that it is not, because if I give you a piece of open source code that you're allowed to use, you will then derive the hardware design necessarily from that code. If that code uses an ARM processor and it expects certain switches to be on certain pins, you're going to put those switches on those pins. So in my opinion, any similarity between the Jumper T16 and the Horus X10S is a function of the fact that they run the same firmware, not a function of the fact that Jumper has copied anything proprietary to FrSky. But there's more to this story, and it ties into the inherent conflict between open source projects and companies that try to make money off of open source projects. I firmly believe that money can be made from open source projects, but if you look at real world examples of that, it is almost always in providing services tied to the product. If there's an open source product and all your competitors can take all your work and just develop products using your work and they don't have to pay for R&D, they get to sell products, that is an inherent conflict. And unfortunately, that's the situation that FrSky finds themselves in by basing so much of their hardware design and their product line on an open source firmware. But they got themselves into that mess, and they can't now suddenly decide that they're not okay with it. In an earlier live stream, I said you can't build a closed proprietary fortress on top of an open source mountain. You got to the top of the mountain because of open source. The fact that you're now at the top you can't now just start knocking other people off who are also climbing that same mountain. In my opinion, that's what FrSky is trying to do here. I asked the OpenTX devs for comment about this issue, and here is a comment that one of them left. He said, yes, there is a bias towards FrSky, but that is based on the fact that FrSky do their best to design original products and features, listen to us. Many popular features of their radios have come from our vision. They trust us. They understand us. They respect us. They've done that for 7 years now, and etc. In other words, what this particular OpenTX dev said, yes, we're biased towards FrSky, and we don't like other vendors. That's their prerogative. Open source devs have absolutely no requirement to be objective. They're just guys working for free on a project. They can work with whatever companies they like. And the beauty of open source is that if somebody like Jumper comes along and the or Nirvana comes along and the OpenTX devs don't want to work on their hardware, they can fork it and they can work on it themselves, which is exactly what Jumper has done, and FrSky objects to it. By the way, the real reason that the FrSky devs are being accused of bias is it's not just because it seems like FrSky radios get priority. Well, that's been acknowledged. But it's also because one of the OpenTX main devs is a full-time employee of FrSky. He didn't used to be. They hired him. And again, there's nothing morally wrong with that. He can take employment from whoever he wants. And if his contributions to this open source project have won him this position, that's fine. But it certainly is something that might help explain the friendliness between FrSky and OpenTX. Okay, so that's the situation. If you see that the Jumper T16 is disappearing from certain stores, you should assume that that's because that store has decided that their relationship with FrSky is more valuable than their relationship with Jumper. And that's certainly understandable. FrSky sells an enormous amount of radios. So some vendors are going to make that choice. And if you see a store that is selling the T16 and suddenly stop selling FrSky, that's because FrSky probably cut them off. And you should take that into consideration, whether you're okay with that or not. I just want you to have the information. I understand the argument that FrSky is trying to make, that companies that innovate and develop new products should be valued. Some people would find it ironic. Trappy from Team Black Sheep finds it really ironic that FrSky is the one who's making this argument, since he feels like their R9 is completely ripping off his Crossfire in every way that FrSky feels that T16 is ripping off FrSky. I made the same argument in both cases, but that's neither here nor there. At the same time, I have a strong sense of fairness and commitment to open source. You can't get in on a GPL project where the rules explicitly say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, in both the letter and the spirit of the GPL, that anyone may use the code, use that to get massively successful, and then suddenly decide that you don't like your competitors coming along and doing exactly what the rules of the project allow them to do. So I will continue to support Jumper. I think the T16 is a good radio. I think many of you will feel that it is a very good radio and the right way to spend your money. I will continue to support them. Fortunately, I don't run a store, so FrSky can't threaten to cut me off. They could threaten to cut me off of product for review, but I'll just buy it if I need to and review it. I'll continue to review FrSky too. Even though I disagree with what they're doing in this case, as a reviewer, I work for you guys, not for anybody else, and so I'm going to continue to review the products that you're interested in. Now you know the situation. Now you know how I feel about it, and you can make decisions for yourself what you want to do with this. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments, and I will try to clear them up or answer them to the best of my ability. Thanks for watching. Happy flying.